Welcome to Eye on the Illini. This is Mike Kegley with Kedrick Prince. We'll have Brad Sturdy coming on in a few minutes, and that will get us rocking and rolling. I will tell you that was one of the stranger moments that I've seen. Uh, at the half, I was concerned only up by 6 points when you're out shooting a team by 20%. Ked, uh, you got to play. I think that Illinois looked tired. I bought into that. Their legs looked a little dead down the stretch. And to be honest with you, Illinois, at least Boswell, and with a lesser extent without Stojakovic, if I've got guards, I'm just going to go penetrate and then go off of that because I'm going to get layups from my guards. I'm going to get dishes that the guard's going to have, and I'm going to get the guards going to the free throw line. And Illinois struggled, getting, Blackwell got in there. I thought they just struggled keeping Boyd and Blackwell in front of them. Part of that's being tired, and part of that's this team isn't that quick.
Ooh, Mike, it's a lot to unpack right here. This is a bad loss. And the loss for me, it's a bad loss because I have concerns I was concerned about Indiana coming to town to begin with, number one, just because how well they shoot the ball. Then you have to go out to the West Coast, and UCLA knocked off Purdue at home, and USC is an athletic team, and Illinois is struggling against those teams. This loss stinks. There's nothing you can say good about it. I'm not going to sit here and make excuses for them. There's a lot to unpack for me right away. Playing six guys. I thought the game could have won one, and before it went to overtime, Keaton makes a free throw. We are going to talk about free throws and turnovers. You make a free throw, the game's over. I think the game really, really changed when Brad gave Keaton a rest, which he should have, before the media timeout, the 8-minute TV timeout. And I was glad he did it. David, I know it's David, but I'm going to say David, sorry. Turn the ball over at crucial times. And the game changed. The momentum changed. You had an 11-point lead and you let them back in the game. And you don't make free throws and you turn the ball over. And I see some of the comments. And I'm going to tell you, I'm concerned about the tired legs. Keaton had a great game offensively, but down the stretch, he just looked like he was gassed. And you can't fault the kid. I mean, I certainly can't fault the kid.
Played 44 minutes.
Yes. And Larry gave me a statistic, and hopefully, Mike, if you want to text him, he'll probably give you the new update. He gave me a statistic today. I'm gonna see if I can find it about the amount of minutes that he's played recently through all these games. Prior to tonight, let me see if I can find it here. He has played in the last 4 Big Ten games against Purdue, Washington, Nebraska, and Michigan State. He has played 156 out of 165 minutes.
Yeah, you're asking an awful lot of a kid.
And then they got abused at Michigan State. And then he put up 35 tonight, or whatever it was. So they not playing Petrovic, to me, it didn't cost him the game. The free throws and turnovers, and I'm not going to sit and say not having Stojakovic wasn't a factor. That was a big factor. He averaged 13, 14 points a game. He rebounds, makes free throws, a good defensive player. He would have been a good guy to guard Blackwell a few times. I think another key point in the game was they had a pass to Zonomir, dropped the ball. He missed the ball. He had a wide open dunk.
He took his face mask off, and I can tell you from when my oldest son had to play a part of a soccer season and part of a basketball season with a face mask, it hurt his ability to catch the ball because you've got that quarter inch around your eyes, right, and it just cuts down on your vision. I don't know. I just noticed it went off, and I wonder if it was because he was having a hard time catching passes, and he just got frustrated and said, "I'm going to go out there and risk it."
I wonder how long he's going to have it on. I know Barry Wallace for the women's program, she's going to have hers on for the rest of the year, and it is different for them. Shauna mentioned that the other day, and maybe that's what it was. And also, it's tough that he couldn't grab the ball at the end, and they got the ball. 50-50 balls matter as well. I think the goaltending her tonight. They just didn't look sharp. They gave, and I want to give Wisconsin credit. They just put themselves in the big line. And when you talk for the tournament, when you're going to talk about teams in the tournament, you're going to fill out your bracket. They're not ranked, but you think about this. They went to Michigan and won, and they won at Illinois. That team, and they shot the hell out of it. They really did. Mike, I said it before the game. I mean, at halftime, they'll make a few more threes. Well, I said 4 more. They made 16. They were 16 for 36 from three. Illinois was 15 for 33. This became a turnover and free throws. This game was lost at the free throw line. No, the turnovers hurt, but you go 11 for 19 from the line, and then you have 2 guys that shoot over 80%. 2 of them don't make free throws. I'm not even blaming the officials. I could care less about that. That game, they let that game slip away.
Well, and look, I still think you're playing with fire, and this Brad Underwood is willing to do this when you cut your bench so short. Every year we hear about how we have the greatest bench of all time, and then we end up playing 8 guys, and then 2 guys get hurt. Now we're down to 6 guys. You'd like to see, Petrovic, who at least on film had high potential, or even Lee get a chance to play earlier in the season, so that on a night like this where you have, Boswell out and you have Stojakovic out, you have somebody who can go in there that you feel at least a modicum of confidence in. Illinois doesn't have that right now. And I think the other thing we're seeing is Kylan Boswell is a hell of a lot more valuable than people thought he was. And if you ever want to talk about should this guy be an all Big Ten player, and I realize with 18 teams, when you miss a few games, you're not going to make all Big Ten. But my point is the struggles that Illinois has had without him, particularly on the defensive end of the court, being able to stop guards is something that other teams notice. But I think it also highlights how good Kylan is.
Mike, I'm going to take a different angle here real quick, if you don't mind, sir. I really wish, if I could have been a fly on the bench tonight, or if I was a fan, one of those super silly fans, I would have yelled exactly what there's about 3 comments on the side here. They couldn't guard Tommy in the post. Why go away from it? There was one time out of a timeout, and we drew up a play. I don't know if it was a play. Ben shot it. I can't say. I don't know why. I'm not in the huddle. But they didn't have an answer for Tommy at all. They didn't have one. They don't block shots, and Wisconsin have size, and they went away from it. They just thought they had to get this 3-point, and it's okay if you want to be a 3-point shooting team, but you went away from your bread and butter. At the end of the game, when they were struggling and you couldn't get a stop offensively, when you couldn't score on the other end, go back in the post, because here's the deal. He was making them or let him get fouled. They took that away from him. And I'm not trying to say it because we have one of our favorite guys on the show with us as in Marcus Griffin, excuse me. But he was cooking in the first half. They didn't have an answer, and it stinks that they went away from it. They really did. And I'll be honest with you, my sister lives in Kentucky. She was texting me, and she was like, she gets mad when the 2 big fellows shoots all the threes. She made the comment, she was like, I don't blame them. They don't throw the ball in the post to them. I don't blame them for shooting threes. I think Zonovan shot 1 3 in the second half in the corner just because he hadn't shot one in a while. That you got to be better than that. Every possession matters.
Yeah, and like I said, I think you see with some players who are better than others at taking what the defense gives you. They cleaned up the rebounding to an extent in the second half because they were behind, in the first half rounds. So they ended up, getting, over maybe to give people an idea of where they fell. Because the stat line, got a little bit wonky for Illinois. You had Merkovich with 12 points, 6 boards, but a crucial, as you said, 4 turnovers. Rickhouse, 10 points, 7 boards. Tomislav, 19 points, 17 in the first half, 11 rebounds, so he doubled. Jake Davis, 11 points, 2 boards, 3 assists, 5 fouls. Wagler with 34 points, but 5 for 10 from the free throw line. Only 1 rebound tonight, 7 assists, and 5 TOs. Lee got out there for a minute, and then Big Z had 4 points, 9 boards, 1 turnover. But boy, he had some rebounds slip out of his hands that were very frustrating. So again, you're looking at a very, very tight lineup. That's something that is concerning. And then when you go to the plus minus, you saw that Big Z was a plus 10. You saw that Wagler was a 3. Jake Davis was minus 8. Big Tomislav was minus 4. Ben was 0, and Merck was negative 6. So that gives you a little bit there. But I will tell you that you obviously, when you lose Boswell, you lose bench points because somebody has to come up. But Illinois shot 53%. You don't expect Illinois to lose. Illinois shot 45% from the 3-point. You don't expect Illinois to lose. Illinois shot 58% from the free throw line. There's your flashing red light, 11 for 19, and 13 turnovers to 4. I mean, that you can't go plus 9 on turnovers and expect to win a game in the Big Ten. Points off of turnovers, 23 to 6. Very similar to the fast break points the other night, 22-0 against Michigan State. You see a stat that you could have avoided there. Total rebounds, Illinois did turn it around in the second half. They won that 38-35, but they were offensive out rebounded 14-8. That kind of tells me Wagler wasn't hitting the boards, and Illinois lost their offensive rebounding prowess. And you can't expect the kid to do everything. He's playing 44 frickin' minutes. Then you look at the second chance points, 12-10, bench points, 26-4, points in the paint, 34-32 for Wisconsin, fast breaks, 9-4 for Wisconsin, blocks, 6-3, Illinois, steals, 8-0, and that's another telling. It goes back to me of a little bit tired legs and a little bit of lack of quickness, and then 17 assists to 15. Illinois did have the lead on assists at the half, and in the second half that kind of slowed down a little bit as well. So I think, when you're looking at that, there is definitely some opportunities there that Illinois definitely missed on, from that standpoint. And you look overall, I guess the other thing that you go to is the points per possession. Illinois ended up 1.286, dropped quite a bit from the first half. It goes down to me, offensive rebounds, and you can't stop the other guards, and then you miss free throws. And some of that goes with only playing 6 guys, and I realize that late Saturday night and then turning around to a Tuesday night game is tough, but all the teams have that happen to them once or twice during the season, and you have to either you got to say Stojakovic is going to play wounded, or you're going to have be able to have some confidence that somebody else can step up and play.
Mike, I want to go back to what you said about Ken Wagner in his 44 minutes. It mattered. I mean, I'm sorry. Here's what I'm noticing. Let's go back to the Michigan State game. I've never seen him trip and fumble and over his feet or lose his balance the way he has the last 2 games. I don't know. And some of it's one-on-one. At first, I thought it was just athleticism from Michigan State and the way they were playing him. But tonight, he had mismatches with guys that were slower than him. And it didn't matter. It just didn't matter. This game was lost. You can get the stats that you give to me right now for Kedrick, the one that's the most bearing, it is the free throws. The free throws, because you don't turn the ball over. Great, man, Wisconsin only turned over 4 times. 13 is not out of the – it's different. So 13 isn't bad. Mike, you said my audio's low. How do I sound to you right now?
Sounds good. At
Okay.
least I can hear.
Um, so the bottom line is, and I know that's going to be addressed at some point from coach, in the post game. But the Big Ten is tough. It is, and they didn't deserve to win. I mean, I'm not going to say anything negative about Wisconsin. I don't blame them for celebrating. And I was looking at it, and it's like you see the joy that people get for beating Illinois. That tells you where you are. But if you want to stay on the national scene and stay relevant, I'm not disrespecting Wisconsin, but you can't lose a home like this to them. You've already slipped up and lost to Nebraska. Now, to me, you lose that game that you go to Nebraska or the Purdue game. That game it matters, but now you lost that game. And this is, to me, when you look on the resume, it's going to not say a bad loss because Wisconsin's going to be a tournament team, but in the eyes of Illinois fans, it's a bad loss because you have title aspirations. Now you're going to have what you don't want to do is you don't want other late to have your Big Ten aspirations hoping somebody else beats the leader because Michigan just got a nice cushion, and I know Dusty May is excited and he's really really happy for Greg Gardner and what they did tonight. So Andre didn't play. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he'll get a break, and I'm sure Illinois probably thought they were going to win without him, and they did. They really did. If you think about it, they were down two players and lost by 2 points in overtime. So that's a positive, and I'm not looking for a moral victory tonight. I'm not, but this was going to sting.
Yeah, and I like I said, you've got opportunities to do things. I do think you really want to you keep the high seeds and get that opportunity to do the Chicago, St. Louis, Indianapolis gig, and that's where these losses really hurt. And the frustrating thing is how you lose at home as opposed to on the road. Illinois plays really well on the and they just don't defend the home court as well as you would like to see.
No, on our message board, I know some fans were kind of upset with me because I made a comment 2 to 4 seed. Now I want you to understand that's why I said that because I know this typically happens and it has happened. Should they get a 4 seed? I don't know, but like I mentioned a few minutes ago, Indiana, because it's at home, these teams are fighting for their lives. These like Indiana and Wisconsin. A win like Illinois will get you in a tournament, get you a higher seed. They're going to get Illinois. Illinois is going to get everybody's best shot. They're going to. So, having said that, you know what? You can afford to have more slip-ups, but I don't want to see. I think if Illinois, to me, this team is good enough to make a final eight run. I at least want to see a final eight. But if you get a four seed, that lessens your chances. Obviously, common sense. A 2 seed gives you a better chance, and then if you get a 4 seed, or if that happens, now hopefully it don't happen, you're going to end up playing one of them, of Arizona or somebody like that. I don't want to see that before you have a chance to at least make a Final Four run. Are they good enough? Yes, but they need Colin Boswell back, and it is encouraging to see him work out a little bit. He didn't have his cast on tonight. The committee may look at tonight. They should look at the fact that both starters were out, but at the end of the day, it's an L in the L column.
Yeah, and I do think you really lose a lot out there. They lose a lot when you don't have probably your two best defenders outside, and at least for sure with Boswell being way ahead of everybody else makes it a real challenge. I think ultimately Illinois is going to have to figure out what are we going to do to get this offense going too. At times these, and I just don't know. You got to figure something out for Wagler because you can't expect this kid to play. I mean, you're talking a 44-minute effort, and you got to give the kid a break. I mean, you have to, and I also think going a little bit in on the inside. Marcus was not available this evening. But that's one of the things that he talks about is going inside, and Illinois had success there. You talked about how they kind of got away from it, and I think Illinois needs to look, that if the defense is going to be out on you, and I think we're seeing defenses extend on Wagler, trying to beat him up, knowing that the refs aren't going to call 57 fouls. So these defenses are smart. They're like, well, let's go out there, and if the ref's going to call 3 fouls, he ain't going to call 9. But then somewhere, and in the middle, Tomislav had things going, and you needed to continue that.
Yeah, he had a great game, and I mean, just literally stopped going to him. And even Zonomer doesn't post up, but he's so tall. I mean, he literally throws the ball in the basket. His shot doesn't get blocked if he's posting up to do it. It stinks. I mean, it's a loss. There's nothing they can do about it now except for they need to run the table. I think if they run the table, they don't lose another game in the regular season. I still think they can, and win one game in the Big Ten tournament. I think they can possibly pull off a 2 seed, and that means beating Michigan at home. But you can't be lazy. You can't be sloppy. You need to do the little things. And in defense of Illinois, Wisconsin made some tough shots at crucial times. The play that Greg, and I know the fans on him started talking about it, and I agree with them. Greg Gard really disguised, I forget the kid's name, who shot the 2 back-to-back threes. Greg Gard schemed Illinois up because they know they help and they block shots where Blackwell was going to the basket. This kid had knocked down 2 threes to the top left corner of the three-point line, and you knew it was coming. I'm watching it develop, and I'm screaming, not like they could hear me, because Illinois fell for it. They fell for it every single time. I would have liked to have seen them seriously, because they didn't play zone one time tonight unless I missed it. I would have changed up my defense a couple times. The matchup zone coming out of one of those timeouts, because they've done that all year, and they didn't do that tonight at all.
Yeah. I think you really have to understand how quick some of these guards are in the Big Ten. If you've ever just watched basketball players play one-on-one, there's not a lot of 7-footers who are going to be able to stay in front of a guard. Now they can go and stand underneath the rim and say, I'll block every shot you take if you go close. But that wasn't always the thing. And then the up and under, I thought Blackwell had it. And I thought, I'll be honest with you, Boyd to me in 2 years is going to be a boo-booey. He looks like he's going to develop into a freaking nightmare. So I think that's tough. I think you needed another defender. But again, you go back to, if you block out a few more times, if you make free throws, it doesn't matter. You get the ball inside to Tomislav for 3 more possessions and it doesn't matter. So there's a lot of what ifs that Illinois has to break down the film and then say, what are we going to do? Because I mentioned in the podcast, I was worried about this stretch of games because Wisconsin's good. Indiana, I don't go because they're a lot better team right now, and USC and UCLA on the road are going to be easy. So Illinois finishes up with Maryland and whoever else. So they got a couple easy games the last week, but this is not going to be a simple stretch down the way here.
It's not going to be simple for Illinois, but I've looked tonight. It's not going to be easy for Michigan State, or Purdue either. They all have tough wins because, Purdue won to Nebraska and won tonight. What's really unique, and I love seeing this part from the fans in the comments. I said it, and I'm going to say it again. Because everybody loves Keaton Wagner, and nobody loves him more than I do, and I love his family, and I've become pretty good friends with them. Let's call it what it is. He missed a free throw in regulation. If he makes a free throw, the game's over. I know people don't want to say that, and he missed some. He was 5 for 8. He's done that a lot lately. You go back to the Nebraska game and then the Michigan State game, and
tied in with minutes. I did tie in his minutes, kid.
Yeah, So at one point in time, he was shooting like 84% from the line. When he was short on the last one, so it was him. If he makes it, you're right. The game's over. And I'll tell you what stinks. The way I look at it right now. This is me being a selfish media guy. He put up 35 points. Can you imagine the hype would have been around him if they would have won tonight? Even though it was Wisconsin, this kid's put up 46, then he puts up 35 a few games later. Struggled at Michigan State. I hope that doesn't get overshadowed. I was on a podcast with another guy, and we talked about Player of the Year in the Big Ten, and Robbie Hummel said exactly what I said in the podcast. Well, if you win the Big Ten, you have to be Player of the Year if Illinois wins it. See, I don't agree with that. If the best player is on a different team, then they deserve it. I don't like that philosophy. And so Keaton is probably one of the top 22 players in the conference. And if they don't win the Big Ten, you're just going to give it to somebody else because they won it. That's not cool, my opinion. But win the league, you have chances like everybody else, and there's no excuse for it.
Yeah, and I'm seeing, people are talking about how, Final Four contenders don't lose at home. You might want to take a look at the top 10 teams and see how many have been beat at home this year, because it's just been one of those years. And that's why um, ultimately, the one thing St. Dominic Rosary is saying, I would agree. I'd have loved to have seen Trey White, here, but that those decisions are made. And I don't know what people ask for. It's easy for us to say, well, he should be here. We don't know what expectations were and where budgets fall in and things like that. But I guess the ultimate thing that we're seeing in the Big Ten, when you look at Michigan being beat at home, Illinois being beat at home, Purdue being beat at home, Nebraska being beat at home, is basically, I don't know. I think only Izzo is the guy who can hold it. And of course, we all know why they went at home. But ultimately, if you look at it, none of these teams are good teams, but none of these teams is invincible this year. There's no D Darren and company. There's no Flying Illini. There's no Bobby Knight's Hoosiers right now. And that means you have to do the little things like make your free throws. You have to block out and get prevent the other team from getting offensive rebounds. And to be honest, Ked, I'm very worried about how teams are going to try to set stuff up to get guard penetration against this team.
I think you might be right. You know what? I'm just reading some of the comments, and I think Coach Underwood, this is the second time in a row. I don't think so tonight. I don't think so. I complain about officiating more than anybody in the world. I don't think that. I know Brad was upset about a lot of calls, and I think so. I guess if I was going to complain, I think he gets beat up a little bit more than he. He's not Michael Jordan, but some of the calls I think he should get. But I think tonight I like seeing him be aggressive with the officials and not be passive, because I'm gonna tell you, why not? Everybody else is doing it. You got to stick up for your players, to be out there to let them know that you're not going to put up with it. The one offensive foul on Tommy, he hooked, and it was right in front of the official's face. It really was. Can't get mad about that. But again, I'm not going to be like, well, that's not the reason they lost. They lost this game. It wasn't the turnovers. It wasn't the second chance points. They lost because they didn't make free throws. That's it. Bottom line.
Yeah, I rarely think it's one thing. Like I said, the offensive rebounds that they gave up hurt. You can't give a team 9 more turnovers than you just can't do that in the Big Ten.
Here's why I say that. You lost by 2 points. All those second chance points, they are second opportunities. Illinois led. I think I've read they were up by 12 with 8 minutes to go.
They were up. There was a 12-point lead that disappeared. Yes.
Make your free throws, and I would say the other part is turn the ball over. They had some crucial turnovers at horrible times when they could have extended the lead. So I would add that to it, I guess. And it's not the end of the world. Because you lost, but there's no margin for error.
Yeah, it's a tough one. You've got the opportunity to I think the valuing of possession sometimes, because there were a few shots that I was like, you kind of settled for shots that I wouldn't have taken, and then you get the turnovers and like you said, missing the free throws. It basically you've really got to figure that part out, and that's
Mike. If you take away the 11 for 19 and just look at that 58%. Think about that. 58%, that stinks. We can say 11 for 19, that don't look as bad. But you're a Division I team, and you're supposed to be a good three-point shooting team. And then you watch Wisconsin at the crucial times. They go up and make them on the road in a hostile environment. And somebody made the comment, check it out, 7-11. He isn't Superman. He is, but he needs his other crew with him. He needs the other, DC characters with him, because tonight they disappeared. And I know Tommy I think, from what I'm looking back, I think they guarded him a little bit different in the second half. They took away his 3-point shooting. If they took that away, which they did, because teams, they can do that, that's when he should have went to the block and then became effective. I think there's too many guys in the team that's not one dimensional. And I'll tell you what, as good as Davidas played, I think tonight, well, he wasn't good. His decision making wasn't good. Going to the basket, leaving his feet, don't have anybody to throw the ball to, dribbling the ball up in front of people's face. I know he was a point guard in high school, but he's not playing point guard for Illinois. Bringing the ball up the court when nobody's guarding you does not constitute you to be a point guard. Because if that's the case, I'm going to tell you, Zonomir could do that. He's just running the offense. That's not being a point guard.
Yeah, it is a challenge, and I do think ultimately, again, these are the small details. And Underwood talked about it after the loss at Michigan State, and I do find it concerning that I can understand losing the rebounding battle or being competitive with Michigan State because that's a Tom Izzo trademark. Brad now is 9-6 against Greg Gard, and that includes the just horrific teams that Brad inherited. But I don't like the idea of a Wisconsin team that is not a standout team on the rebounding being able to keep it this close or to get that many, offensive rebounds against Illinois. You have to figure out that. And I'm not a big fan of DJ Cartensen, but I didn't think the referees, there were some weird calls, but that's Big Ten. But I didn't think the referees, were the issue here. It was the things Illinois didn't do that allowed them back into the game. And there is something about, and I think as a coach, you don't want your guys to shoot tentative and try to be throwing darts, when you get a lead. But when you're up by 12 points, that's not the time to shoot a 3-pointer with 16 seconds left on the shot clock with somebody guarding you. That's just, now granted, maybe you wait 14 more seconds and you throw up a 3-pointer, but at least you got the 14 seconds. But to me, it's like, if you're going to shoot that shot, you better make that shot. And so I think that shot selection at times, or just the loosey-goosey handles on the ball is frustrating as well for some of the turnovers you were talking about.
I also want to go public with this. I need to apologize to a Ben Humrickhouse. I was on that kid's behind all last year. I was just constantly. He's impressed me. If he goes 0 for 15 the next game, I'm still going to feel the same way. He's making shots. He really does rebound. He plays defense, and he does little things. And Illinois missed 2 free throws, and he was the guy that got the offensive rebound to give them an opportunity again. So, I'm not apologizing, but I am apologizing, if that makes sense. He's had a much different turnaround. And some of the threes that he makes, they're tough, and I think he's making them because he's 6'9". But I'm proud of him. I'm glad he stuck it out. They need a guy like him. I wish he was much more vocal. It's just not who he is, because he's a really, really good, nice, religious guy, and I respect that about him. He's leading with his play on the court. But I hope at some point in time, and we're not going to know about Kylan Boswell. At some point, you're going to see him in the lineup, and that's when you're going to know. So maybe it'll be Sunday, maybe it won't be. Nobody's going to leak that out. Like we didn't know Andre. I thought Andre was going to possibly play because he played most of the game against Michigan State, unless he heard in practice. I've not got a clear confirmation. I've just heard, but I've not got a clear confirmation on that yet.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly. Somebody mentioned your closeouts might be a little bit better with him, and like I said, I think Bam, would have been really, really important. And again, you and I tend to like Petrovic. We keep hearing that offensively he's tough to handle in practice. Well, defensively it must be just a disaster because they're not willing to put him in. It would be nice to have, given him some minutes earlier in the season so that he was ready for this. I think the other thing, Ked, when I look at the upcoming schedule, So you see that on Sunday, play Indiana at noon, and Indiana will be visiting Illinois at home, which is scary because Illinois has struggled at home. But I think they're going to be extremely happy to have 5 days off to rest up a little bit. And then you go out to UCLA the following Wednesday and Saturday. So those are 3 games. I don't think that any of them you can just write down W automatic.
It's a quick turnaround. It's a quick turnaround after Sunday. Mike, let me ask you. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something, and I think I am. I've seen a lot of comments here from our listeners, but I've also seen a lot on social media. They're really, really critical of the Orange Crush. What did I miss? Did you miss something? Because people are really harsh on them on social media everywhere. And then on these comments here that they were quiet. And the Orange Crush, I will say this, when I've heard somebody the other day talk about the top 3 arenas in college basketball's atmosphere, they mentioned Nebraska over Illinois, and that kind of concerns me. But I don't know what I'm missing, and maybe they were quiet, and maybe I was just into the game and not paying attention to it.
Yeah, I gotta be honest with you. I think Illinois doesn't have a massively loud home court advantage right now. Maybe people didn't like the wigs.
I did. I thought it was cool. Man,
you're just jealous because you didn't get one. We know.
No, it's not having it here.
Yeah. And John Fanta certainly liked them from watching it. I will tell you, I just, you look at it and it's hard to complain a ton about the offense in and of itself. I see a lot of people complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
Even in a game here, they ended up over, almost 1.3 points per possession. So it's hard to complain a ton about the offense, which then leads you to, now we're back to, did you make your free throws? Did you rebound well? Did you turn the ball over? And the other thing is Illinois didn't force a single turnover. Now, Illinois is not a turnover, machine in terms of causing those. But you'd think with a bunch of tall guys that occasionally they just have a pass that comes close enough for them to reach. And so, when you put those things together, it's a lot of little stuff that I think haunted them. And to me, the missed free throws were frustrating. And then watching the guards penetrate made me think, okay, are we going to see those pick plays where the big guys come in, crash on the outside and watch the guard go around, and that sets up the offense. Are we going to see that for the rest of the season? And without Boswell there, I'm afraid we may see that just to see how Illinois reacts.
I'm going to see how they react. I think Keaton will be a lot better. As well as he's playing right now, if Illinois can get somewhat similar to what Kylan was like before he went out, I'm seeing that, I know he got his cast off and he's going to be, going to the doctor. I know they're trying to slowly get him back. But I think that's going to take a lot of pressure off him on so many levels, because tonight, here's why I knew he was tired. Guys, when they were taking the ball out of bounds, I don't think he even had the energy just to go get the ball. One time, he just told Ben to bring it up. He just waved him off. And me personally, I wanted the ball in his hands for selfish reasons because how good he is. But he's not going to come out. He's a tough kid. I love that about him. We're all enjoying this moment. This kid made some unbelievable shots tonight. The threes, and his was weird. He was getting to the basket with the threes he made with the range, with being tired. That's, to me, tells you how good he's going to be at the next level. He's really going to be tough because, one, he's not going to play that many minutes. He'll get a blow, he'll get a break, and he won't have to do anything but play basketball. So he'll have rest. But he looks, again, 35 points, Mike, against a really good defense in Wisconsin. Blackwell's a tough kid to go against. How many points did Blackwell have?
He ended up with 24. He was Blackwell was 24 and Boyd was 25. So you had two guards who could penetrate and then obviously shot from outside as well. But you had two guards that were at 49 points, and I think that's where you look at Kylan and you say, wow, if there's ever a flashing red alert like you saw in Star Trek, not having Kylan out there to help on the D is something that is big.
And also Andre. And I'm tired of Illinois ties. I mean, Kendall Gill's son didn't do it. But watching Blackwell, knowing the fact that his dad played at Illinois, came back, and he's always motivated to play Illinois. I'm friends with his father on Facebook. And it's like, why does everybody come back and just stick it to Illinois, because they didn't get recruited? And I know it's extra motivation. It is. And it is. And his dad was a really good basketball player for Illinois, but I get it. And, and I saw one time he actually applauded Keaton. You could read his lips. He told me it was a good shot. And there's a lot of trash talking. You're starting to see Keaton a little bit show some emotion, and I like that. He got the end one in and called it, kind of shrugged his shoulders a little bit. It's kind of like a cute little thing. And there's a running joke for the people who aren't on our message boards because he cut his hair and they're worried about if that's going to affect his game and how strong he is. I thought it too, because if you're superstitious, you think those things. But he was just tonight what he did on the, I don't want to say national stage, but I guess on the big stage with NBC. I still want to see him get off his accolades, and I still hope this guy becomes a lottery pick. That's going to be a great story within itself for years to come. Illinois was able to get this kid, but right now they need to try to win, get to a final eight. At least that's with this team. I would be very disappointed, me personally, if it wasn't a final eight. Final four, you have to have a lot of things go your way. The side of the bracket. If Illinois didn't run into UConn 2 years ago, they're there. They have a chance. You have to have things go your way.
Well, and it's amazing. I know people are frustrated because they don't like a loss. I get it. But if you look back, this is the second loss in a row, 2-point loss, to Wisconsin in overtime, 3 points to Michigan State in overtime. You have to go all the way back then to the Nebraska loss, which was a last-second shot. So that's a 3-point loss. And you have to go all the way back to UConn where they lost by 13. And even Alabama's loss was at 4 points. So 4 out of their 5 losses were by 3 out of their 5 losses were by one possession. A fourth one was by 4 points. And then the UConn was clearly, to be honest, that 13 points was not as close as the game was. So they've got to figure out, it seems to me that execution, and then you've got to be able to figure out how to deal with the teams that are going to try to leverage the fact that you're not that quick.
No, I want to tell you this. For the people out there who want to know what Brad Underwood thinks, because I'm seeing everything and trying to listen to, this podcast and do my job here, but Brad Underwood was asked about the officiating. Quote, I'm frustrated. I'm frustrated as heck. I think you can see tonight it was different. I told you can see him be much more aggressive tonight. I know he is probably that way, and because sometimes you want to get the 50-50 calls. You know what? Oh, somebody asked for Fizz from Illinois too. Yeah, and Fizz wanted to go to Illinois, and he silently committed to Illinois. He really did. Illinois kind of backed off on him because he wasn't a good shooter. So he
wouldn't have fit. I'll be honest with you.
He wouldn't have.
He wouldn't have fit on this team because everybody would just stay back 35 feet, and then with the rest of Illinois 5-out offense, that doesn't right,
No.
I mean,
even if Mike, if people don't like the offense, I understand it. But this is a team that you root for, and this is what they're going to do. He wouldn't have fit. Now, his other son, Jeremiah, who actually committed to Illinois, he would have fit on the team.
Yeah, he would have fit very well.
The way he plays. But Jeremy, no, he is not because, every coach will tell you, everybody on the team can shoot. Boswell's not electric, but he's a damn good shooter himself. So, and he's strong enough to get to the basket. That's why. And yes, he did. And he silently, verbally committed to Illinois. He was supposed to commit some January. I remember that. And then something happened. I think the coaches, like I said, I know they backed off him a lot for that reason. And, he's having a good year. And I personally think I think it's a two-person race, between him and Keaton Wagler for Big Ten Player of the Year. That's me. I mean, I'm not getting rid of Braden Smith, and I know Michigan and Iowa have been the Sturts. I get it. But I think right now it's a two-person race. And, I think, I don't know. Because as much as people are frustrated with Fierce, they can put up some really, really good numbers. If you look at his last 4 or 5 games, he's putting up 30 points, and I don't know how he's doing all these free throws. He's a good free throw shooter.
Well, he gets fouled for falling down.
I know flopping, but for him it works. Maybe Keaton. No, it wouldn't work for Keaton because he was an Illinois jersey. Just kidding.
But well, here's the thing. I'm gonna say stuff that will probably make people mad, but I will say that it takes a while to get that gold standard where you get all the calls, and Illinois was finally starting to get them with Bill Self's 3 years, and then you had Weber's first couple years. Illinois was starting to get those calls, and then of course Weber fell apart, and then John Gross took the program and scrunched it up and flushed it down a toilet. And then you remember how bad it was the first 2 years when Underwood had no talent and they didn't have the transfer portal yet where you could have instant eligibility. So if you look at Illinois this year in terms of its disparity in free throws and foul calls, Illinois is starting to get those calls, but they're nowhere near what you would expect from, let's say, what Izzo's built. But Izzo's built it over 30 years. I'm not saying I like Tom Izzo. I'm not saying that. And you look at what Matt Painter gets at Purdue. Well, he took over a program from Gene Cady, so there was never the really crappy time in between. So they've been getting calls for, Ked, Brad, and I have been watching. We've been watching Illini basketball since we were kids, and Gene Cady used to scare the living hell out of them. And people don't remember that before him, I think it was Lee Rose who was there, or maybe it was the guy who went, or I can't remember who it was there before him. But so there was a good coach there before Cady took over. So they've had good basketball coaches and getting those calls for 50 years. And Underwood's finally starting to turn the ship. I'm not saying they're getting the calls that Michigan State does, but this year has been a lot better for my stress level with refs. But let's not talk about that. Yeah, Bobby Knight, yep, at Indiana, but that's been destroyed. They don't get the calls that they did under Robert Montgomery Knight. Brad, you were there tonight. We've been going in a lot of different directions. What are your thoughts?
Carmen, are you there?
Well, we're not hearing Brad's thoughts, but we will see.
I'm just really curious to know all the comments from the press conference, and I think I see pretty much most people. It's pretty much the same thing of why they lost. But Mike, before Brad gets on, hopefully he can hear us. Somebody made a good comment. Illinois doesn't. The way they play offense, they're not going to get to the foul line a lot. They're not going to get calls because they shoot a lot of threes. So whoever made that comment, that was on point. I totally agree with that person because the way they play offense, think about it. We're complaining because Zonomer doesn't post up. The only person who really tries to get to the rim is Andre and Keaton Wagler. David will sometimes, but he's still able to shoot over the top of people. They don't get to the line a lot.
Yeah, and
Boswell when he's playing. Sorry.
But again, we can look at the number of free throws they shoot on a game in, game out basis, and to me it's an improvement. I would have thought Kofi would have shot way more than he did, and so I think Illinois is getting the calls, and they're not getting as many called on them as we've seen historically. So, to me, it's like I said, this is a better year, and I think Underwood just needs to keep stringing good years together, and you start getting more calls. I think that's the key. You got to do that. And I think, I don't know if Wisconsin wanted it more. Maybe. I think Illinois ran out of a little bit of gas, and I think having only 6 players play is, significant minutes is markedly different than going with 9 players or 8 players, and so I guess Garlock didn't play much, but they had, a few more minutes. I think you have to acknowledge that as a coach and say, well, we got to figure out how we're gonna adapt. And do you throw do you throw the Eastern European guy who's on the tryout? Do you throw him in a game, see if he can play? No, I don't know.
No, even with Ty Rodgers and him losing a year of eligibility, no, at this stage of the season, what is Ty Rodgers going to do for you except for come in? If he's rusty, he's going to sit on the bench because he hasn't played. And I'm sure he's out there working out a little bit, but he needs a full year. I don't know what's going to happen with him next year at all. I mean, I wrote an article today about, the transfer portal. People better wake up because it's about that time. It's going to come a lot quicker than what you think, and if they can keep some of these guys, men and women in the program, I mean, you're going to have to do that. So, but anyway, you know what? I hate to say this, Illinois is going to need some help, but I'm not sure that they're going to go to the West Coast and come back 2-0. If I'm wrong, you guys call me out on it. I want to be wrong. I really do. And somebody made the comment, you think after losing to Michigan State, they come out fired up? They did. I thought they played well. They missed free throws. And Wisconsin shot it really well. I mean, they're two of the best three-point shooting teams in the Big Ten. So, I mean, I thought if they shot average, Illinois wins, but they made some tough shots at crucial times. And from deep, they weren't just your average three-point shots. I mean, they ran their offense really, really well. I was impressed with them tonight.
Yeah. I think I think the team I'm less discouraged. I just, like I said, to me, this team is this close, and I know people are getting all, they're getting concerned, but they're this close to being really, really good. You've got, 4 of your 5 losses are by 4 points or less. And then you look at the small stuff. And I know coaches say that, and you're like, okay, this is just coach speak, but it really is the little things. A couple more blockouts, Illinois wins that game. A couple more free throws, Illinois wins that game. And a couple less turnovers, Illinois wins that game. So, I mean, I think if I'm a coach, I'm going to try to figure out what do I do to get that consistency, and then what do I do to get Boswell and Stojakovic back and ready to go.
Mike, I want to say something. I don't know if this probably won't make Illinois fans feel better. I know it probably won't, but Iowa State was ranked 5th in the country. They just lost to TCU at home. They went to TCU and lost. So it happens, guys. I mean, this is going to be, I don't know what you guys all do for a living. If you're bosses or your supervisor, if you're a manager yourself, you let you get the TVs, get ready. It's going to be one hell of a ride. I mean, like, them losing to TCU is tough. And I mentioned to what Duke did last week on my Twitter page, and UConn lost, and Michigan State lost 2 games in a row themselves. They did. They lost 2 games in a row. It stinks because you care about Illinois, and I certainly understand that. I get it because I'm frustrated myself. But if Iowa State to go on the road and lose to a 14-10 team, that's not going to hurt. And I'm really curious what the polls will look like. Illinois will probably fall out because when the polls came out this week, Illinois just beat Nebraska, and they were ahead of them in the polls. The polls matter to me. I know at the end of the day it doesn't when it comes to net rankings. I like the polls. I think it's a good PR, and I'll tell you what, the coaches use that. Don't let them fool you. And they use the good games when they play to recruits. They use that. They can get on the camera and say all the things that you guys think that they believe it. It does matter. Because if you don't think that they brag about, hey, we're ranked 8th, or you don't think that Illinois sent their game tape out to recruits, or when Keaton Rockler had 46 points against Purdue, and then you go to Nebraska, that stuff matters. It does. I don't like UConn either. I agree with whoever that person is. I agree with you. Not a fan of the coach.
Yeah, well, although it is surprising to watch him, he's surprisingly charming guy, like at an AAU tournament, which is like really weird because he's such a colossal baby during games. So I guess he's your typical Bob Knight guy. He's really, really good if he's winning. If he's not, then yep.
Well, I'll tell you this,
I said.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of him because of his negative recruiting towards Illinois. I'm not a fan of that. I mean, I'm from very, very reliable sources, and one I saw myself, and Illinois was recruiting a kid, and so was UConn. And I mean, I've not heard it. I'm telling you, I have, because I've asked recruits. Illinois coaches, men and women. I know more about men and women than I do the football program because, getting information out of them is like, I don't know. I don't want to say that, but they'll, you get information, I guess, from the men's and women's basketball. And I didn't like the fact that he was really negative towards Illinois. And anytime UConn loses, I'm excited. I was excited when they got beat last Friday. I mean, running around my house jumping because I'm loving it. So I'm just not a fan of his. I don't think in today's world you should be doing that.
Yeah. I mean, look, we're gonna run some comments here because I think there's some that are there's some there's pretty good ones here. So I'm hoping Brad doesn't spend the next 4 days running everyone up and down the court, loose ball drills and free throws. I'd like him to get a little bit of rest. So that may be a plan. I'm not certain if that's a good plan, but yes, I'm hoping he doesn't do that. More post offense when 2 7-footers are playing. Yes, we've all said that, and even if we didn't believe it, Marcus is big enough to influence me to decide to say it. But actually, that's a big dude. But I actually agree with him on that. I don't know if I say bad game management, but again, you always look and try to say, are there things we could do better? And I got to be honest with you, with the team, if Keaton looks tired and I'm going to keep him in, maybe you do use a couple timeouts and you hamstring yourself later in the game. But boy, your fans are going to get really mad about that if you take a couple of blows, a couple timeouts to rest a player or two, and then in the end of the game you don't have a timeout. Then everybody's mad that you wasted the timeout. So some of this stuff we're looking at after the game's over, and it's easy to double because we know what happened, whereas when the coach made the decision, they don't know what happened.
If I don't want to say this is a criticism, but it's going to sound like a criticism. During timeouts, teams make a run. If there was one thing I really, really want to see Illinois do differently, is when they come out of a timeout, I want to see an imagination play. I want to see something. They came out of a timeout once and dribble handoff, throw the ball to wing, and then Ben Henrichs shot a contested three-pointer. I really want to see that part of it. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I'm used to the offense. The college basketball is all pick and roll, 2-man games, slip screens, flare out. I get it. I don't like it, but it is what it is. But some people run a lot of misdirections, and like Illinois, there's 2 things that they've done that's new that I like. They did it in the Michigan State game. They had a pick and roll. And they ran a dunk with Z and with Tommy. I think they ran it tonight. Coming out of a timeout, run those misdirections. You have to be able, in my opinion, do that. Now, I don't want to make people hit X, on the computer, but I went to a coaching clinic once with Bruce Weber, and it makes a lot of sense. And I've said this here before, and if you've heard it, I'm sorry. Bruce Weber talked about, because he was really good at drawing up things out of a timeout. And don't hang up on us, guys. I'm sorry. Hang up on me for saying this. But Bruce made the comment, he watched other teams when he would go back and watch film sessions. If teams ran plays against him, he would sometimes steal them. He would also steal plays off ESPN because they show you the same things. They'll show you what the highlights were. To steal those things, it's not against the law to do it because teams steal what you do. So those are things that I think in situations where you're like, okay, what are you going to run? What are you going to run? And I know this is men's basketball, but I think Shauna Green does an excellent job. She will get a playoff for her best player or run some good action for them every time. That's one part I wish I would really, really see to stop the bleeding. And the shot may not go in, but every coach and every team needs an arsenal where you can get a layup, get a three, or get to the foul line. I want to see more of that personally. Mike, what are you smiling at, my friend? I see these things on the sideline. What am I missing here?
No. Just a couple of things there. I think. Look, we're going to wrap it up now, but again, we're going to try to tell you honest assessments. We're going to say, well, might have done this different, might have done that different. But again, it's easy for us to sit back and double think things because we know what the final result was when Coach Underwood is making the decision, or if Keaton pulls up and takes a shot, he doesn't know what's going to happen. And we obviously already do. So that makes it a little easier. That's why it's easy. But we are going to wrap it up. We're at the hour point. Brad is having issues getting through the cell phone, so we're not going to keep people around. We really appreciate you coming on board tonight, and of course, we will be back for Sunday's game, and we look forward to that. It should be a lot of fun. Hopefully, Illinois can pull this out and start turning this around. And let's hope that Illinois does whatever's necessary to get those two guys healthy for the long run, not just for one game. So until next week, folks, or until next time, go Illini.